Hi guys, I cannot believe what is going on over at Viltrox. They have introduced another lens in their Air series lineup, and this series is easily my favorite series of lenses going right now because there is nothing in the history of lenses that has been put out that is a better value than these Air series lenses. They are all under $180. This one included. This one is $179 USD, and it is a 25mm F1.7. And so many people wanted a wider type lens in the Air series lineup, and here it is. Fantastic lens for videography. Take a look at this gorgeous shot right here with our breathtaking model, and now take a look at this shot here of the ravishing identical twin brother of that alleyway model, because this is such a great lens when it comes to videography. Now still, many people will want to use it for photography, and it is so small and light. It is a great photography lens as well, so we should talk about it. So, of course, a disclaimer, like almost all of the lenses that I review on this channel, this was sent to me at no cost to myself for the purpose of this review, so let that bias factor in where it may. And I will say I am probably a little biased when it comes to these Viltrox Air lenses, and I'm biased because I have had so much evidence that they are fantastic lenses. For APS-C right now, they have a 56mm, they have this new 25mm, and in the middle, a 35mm. And look at this right here. They are all about the same size, and by about the same size, they're off by maybe a millimeter. They are about the same weight, maybe off by a gram, depending on the size of the glass elements inside the very, very similar housing. They also have two full-frame lenses right now in the Air series lineup, and I do hope they will be adding. This is a 20mm, is this the right one? The 20mm f, yep, 2.8, and this one is the 40mm f 2.5. These are full-frame lenses, and they are also under $180. But today, we will be focusing on the APS-C lineup, the growing APS-C lineup for the Air series. I have already reviewed the 56 and the 35 in depth, so I will link those below if you want to see them. But long story short, they are absurd values, optically fantastic lenses for a really cheap price. And here we go again. Looking at build quality, we have the same story as the other Air lenses in that it is made of a very hard plastic. It feels really solid in your hand, even though it is a lightweight lens. There's no flex at all, and it also has a smooth turning focus ring, but there is no bells, no whistles, there are no buttons or switches or aperture rings, and when you factor in the optical quality of this lens, then you can't blame them for leaving out those extra little accoutrements. It has the same 52mm filter thread as all of the other Air lenses, which is great. You can just get one filter and share it across all of the series of lenses. It has a USB-C port on the back for updating, but there is no weather sealing on the back or anywhere really on the lens. There are some coatings on the front of the lens to prevent things like oil and moisture from getting in, but it is not considered a weather sealed lens. So if you take it out in the elements, you'll be taking your chances. I have had it out in light rain and it has not been an issue for me so far. As a minimum focus distance of 30 centimeters, which isn't bad for a 25mm APS-C lens, you can get fairly close to your subject if you want to do some close-up photography and blow out the background a little more. Comes with a plastic lens hood, but this one's actually really solid. Sometimes with the lower price lenses, you get a cheap lens hood and it has a lot of flex in it and it feels like it's going to break when you put it on. Not so with this one. Nice and solid, pretty rugged for this price point. Let's start with sharpness. Like all of the Air series, it is absurdly sharp, not just in the centers, but in the corners as well. The only time it is slightly less sharp when you're down at f1.7, its lowest aperture, is when you are doing your minimum focus distance. Then you have to wait till about f2.8 for it to sharpen up fully. But as long as you're not at that minimum focus distance, then even at f1.7, it is a crazy sharp lens. I would say the sweet spot is about f4 in terms of corner to corner sharpness, but you can really use this lens at any aperture until you get into the very high f-stops and diffraction kicks in. This thing is going to be crazy razor sharp. When it comes to autofocus, we have more good news. I was testing the E-mount version on my Sony cameras, and it was almost dead silent. You put your ear up to it, and you can hear a little bit of whirring while it is trying to gain focus, but that focus gains very, very quickly. It just snaps to the subject. If you are in APS-C mode especially, it is lightning fast, almost instant, no real hesitation. It is also great at tracking the subjects in both photos and video. Viltrox, when it comes to autofocus and I get a Viltrox lens, I expect almost perfection, and that is what I got. Another area that these air lenses excel at is focus breathing. Now, you can't use the focus breathing compensation on Sony cameras with third-party lenses, but no worries when you have an air lens. This 25mm has almost no focus breathing. And since a lot of people are going to want to use this lens for video, that is very welcome. You can just stick this on a small Sony APS-C camera, put it on a gimbal, use it all day long, and not worry about that focus breathing. That is a really nice bonus. With lateral chromatic aberration and longitudinal chromatic aberration, once again, we see the Air series defying its price point. With lateral chromatic aberration, you can see virtually none. I tried my best to see any lateral chromatic aberration. I just shot a backlit subject. I dragged my shadows way up. I raised exposure. There's nothing I could do to see any lateral chromatic aberration. When it comes to the longitudinal chromatic aberration, the areas in the foreground and background that are out of focus, you can see a tiny bit of it at f1.7. I mean, it is really minimal, and you have to pixel peep, and you also have to put the lens in a very stressful situation to see any of that LOCA. Maybe if you completely overexpose your image when you're taking your photo, you might see a hint of it, but in regular exposure, you are rarely, if ever, going to see any of that longitudinal chromatic aberration. I am not sure how Viltrox is doing that with all of their lenses, but they are doing it. Now, I have said a lot of nice things about this lens to this point in the video, so let's look at an area that maybe it doesn't perform quite as well as some of the more expensive lenses, and that would be with flaring and ghosting. You are going to get some flares and some lack of contrast when you have a really bright light in your photo, or if your subject is extremely backlit. So I would recommend you leave on that petal lens hood if you are out shooting and you have a bright sun blaring into your lens. Of course, at $179, you are not going to get the same levels of coatings that you are going to get on a G Master lens. It is still a pretty good lens in that respect. It is just not quite as good in that area as it is in all of the other areas. Sunstars do come out on this lens starting at about f11. They are stronger at f16. They don't have really defined points unless you have a very, very pinpoint type of light. So I wouldn't buy this lens for its strength in Sunstars, but they are there. Now let's get back to some good news. The bokeh on this 25mm is fantastic. It is just so nice and soft, not distracting back there, not busy back there. The specular highlights look really great, really impressed with the bokeh quality. And when it comes to the bokeh balls, they are not perfect, but they are still really great. Great balls on this lens. Nice and round in the center, a little bit of cat's eyeing towards the corner, but the best part is that it has no haloing or ugly color tinge around the outside of the orbs. On the inside, not perfectly smooth, but definitely acceptable. So I think for a 25mm, these are really nice bokeh balls. When it comes to barrel distortion and vignetting, the first thing I will say is that there will be a profile for this lens in Lightroom. You will be able to just click it in Lightroom and correct any barrel distortion and vignetting. Viltrox is very good about providing profiles right in Lightroom itself, but without any corrections, you are going to see a moderate, not even a moderate, a small amount of barrel distortion, but a moderate amount of vignetting. And the vignetting goes away when you stop it down to about f2.8. But if you're shooting at f1.7, very easy to correct that yourself, maybe a +5 in terms of the barrel distortion and about a +60 or so for getting rid of the vignetting down at f1.7. So my goodness, guys, if you have a Nikon Z, APS-C, a Fuji X, or a Sony E-mount, you now have amazing options. 3 amazing options for under $180. A 25mm 1.7, 35mm 1.7, and a 56mm F1.7. I hope that they keep adding to this lineup, and I'm pretty sure they will. If Viltrox start making zoom lenses, you may not have to look at any other company at all. They're making fantastic pro lenses. They have that Lab series now for the full frame. They have this ridiculous budget line, which optically is amazing, but at such cheap prices with these tiny little portable lenses. I'm so excited about what Viltrox is doing. Definitely my favorite lens company going right now, and I do appreciate them sending these things over so I could show them to you fine folks. But you tell me down below, is this worth it to you? Do you like these new Viltrox Air series? If not, tell me what you want to see, and then I will go out and get that thing and then review it for your faces. Thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.